Good evening, everyone. Welcome to COS at Home. I am your host, Jonathan Viaud. Thank you for joining us tonight. Once again, we are excited to be with you and bring you another great program. I should also say hello to my tail, otherwise known as my buddy O'Malley. He decided to join us for tonight for the program as well. So thank you again for being here, ladies and gentlemen. Joining me for tonight's interview segment will be one of our favorite and frequent guests, #1 best-selling author, film producer, and host of the Steve Deace Show on Blaze TV, Steve Deace. We also have the results from a timely mailbag question about a situation impacting millions of Americans, and we will also take a peek at a COS University course featuring COS co-founder and senior advisor Michael Farris. Now it's time for an introduction to Convention of States, and tonight we get to hear from a member of our COS Indiana team, Melba Kaiser.
My name is Melba Kaiser, and I am a Cuban-born naturalized citizen. My family came here when I was a little girl. My father was a medical doctor and surgeon, my mother a school teacher. As with millions of other immigrants, they saw America as the land of freedom and opportunity. In 2015, I was educated on the Convention of States movement here in Indiana. As soon as I read about that proposal behind the Convention of States, I realized that that was the only answer to reversing the issues that we're having with our federal government. COS is made up of millions of volunteers that are giving of their time and their talent. There are many worthwhile causes that we could be donating to, but for me at the top of that list is COS, because that organization of volunteers and leaders is working to protect our constitutional right and to return the power back to we, the people.
Right on, Melba. We are indeed looking to reclaim the power for we, the people. We are doing that by encouraging our state legislators to pass the COS resolution, which calls for an Article 5 convention to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, reduce the size and scope of the federal government, and place term limits on members of Congress and federal officials. Furthermore, our organization's mission takes us beyond a convention as we seek to build an engaged army of self-governing grassroots activists, or the way I prefer to define it, to reestablish a culture of self-governance. We have the solution big enough to solve the problems caused by the federal government. All we need is for you to join the movement. So join us now by going to conventionofstates.com/act. Now it's time for 5 for 5. All right, so just a reminder, folks, this segment is where we take 5 minutes to learn or talk about Article 5 and some of the resources that we have available for you. So tonight, we wanted to share a sneak peek from one of our COS University courses that we make available to all of our activists. This clip is from our course on reclaiming our country, and it is brought to us by COS co-founder and senior advisor, Michael Farris.
It's important for us to do everything we can to elect good people to be president, senators, and congressmen. I've become convinced that Washington, D.C. is utterly broken and will not, on its own, ever reduce its own power in any material way. So what can we do to take our country back? How can we recreate government under the Constitution as written? George Mason, a Virginia delegate to the Constitutional Convention, predicted that this day would come, and he also gave us the solution. When the delegates were debating the amending process for the Constitution itself, the proposal was on the table for Congress to propose all constitutional amendments, while the states would ratify all amendments. But George Mason argued that there would arise a day when the federal government would abuse its power, and he believed that amendments to the Constitution could and should check those abuses of power. The convention records describe Mason's arguments, saying no amendments of the proper kind would ever be obtained by the people if the government should become oppressive, as he verily believed would be the case. Accordingly, Article 5 of the Constitution was redrafted. It gave us 2 ways to amend the Constitution. The method that has always been used to date is the first one. Congress can propose amendments whenever 2/3 of both houses of Congress approve a proposed text. Then it goes to the states for ratification. But the second method allows the states to propose amendments whenever 2/3 of the states agree to call a convention to propose amendments. This method requires the state legislatures of 34 states to approve formal applications for an amendments convention on the same subject. There have been over 400 such applications from 49 of the 50 states, but we've never had a convention because there's never been an agreement by 2/3 of the states on the same subject matter. There are 3 kinds of applications that the states could employ if they chose to do so. First, there could be a call for an open convention. States could simply say, we want a convention to consider any and all amendments. States could also say, we want a convention for a particular amendment. For example, states could call for a balanced budget amendment convention. Third, the states could call for a convention for a particular topic that might contemplate more than one amendment. The very first application from a state was from Virginia in 1789, and it was primarily aimed at getting the Bill of Rights. Virginia's application for a convention of the states, the term that they used in this very first application, wasn't joined by other states because James Madison pushed the Bill of Rights through Congress. So the objective was accomplished in the alternative way that's provided in the Constitution. But the amendments that we need today will never be proposed by Congress. We need to stop the General Welfare Clause from being used to say that Congress can spend money on any fool thing it wants. We need to stop the crushing regulation of our economy through the misuse of the Commerce Clause. And we need to stop the debt that arises from inappropriate spending projects. And we must do something to stop the misuse of federal judicial power. But how is all this possible? How can we possibly get the state legislatures to engage in this kind of plan? In the fall of 2013, I helped launch the Convention of the States Project, along with Mark Meckler, who's the president of Citizens for Self-Governance. Here's our plan. There are 3 phases to it. First, 34 states have to approve applications for a Convention of the States for the same purpose. Our purpose is to impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and to impose term limits on federal officials. The second phase is the convention itself, which would be held to draft the formal language of the amendments to be proposed. Now, the most important thing to know about the convention stage is it would be one state, one vote, and that is a really important protection. The third phase is 38 states must ratify whatever amendments come out of the convention. For example, if 7 amendments curtailing federal power are proposed, then the states can approve or reject each of these amendments as they see fit. It's just like the Bill of Rights. 12 amendments were proposed, 10 of the 12 were approved by 1791.
So much great stuff there from Michael Farris, and we're so thankful to have him not only founding this organization, but continuing to advise us and providing such great content that we make available to our activists. You can really learn a lot about American history, not just the Article 5 aspect of it, but the Constitution itself, and understanding what the thoughts were by the framers of the Constitution when they were putting this together, in addition to so much more. And when you do take the time to study this, you recognize it's not a process to be feared. It's something to be embraced. And we're blessed, really, that the founders had such forethought to put Article 5 into the Constitution, not just the way that it's been done, but that second clause that gives we the people the opportunity to propose and ratify amendments to the Constitution without having to go through a federal government that has become tyrannical. And that's why we should never be afraid of this process. And frankly, we should embrace it and utilize it. So for more of that information, you can go to cosuniversity.com. But remember, you need to sign up and become a member of a Convention of States team to access that content. So go to conventionofstates.com/act to sign up. Okay, and now it's time for the latest COS news from around the country. And here to tell us all about that is Andrew Luce with COS Now.
As tensions rise across the nation, I've got good news about the Convention of States movement. Let's get into it. Last Saturday's shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner was Scary reminder that we need to tone down the rhetoric and remember what unites us, not what divides us. Speaking of this, Convention of States President Mark Meckler was asked to give his reaction on the Rod and Greg show.
Yeah, I actually wrote a piece about this morning. I find it incredibly disturbing, obviously, what happened at the Correspondents' Dinner. But it's not just predictable, it's inevitable. You have people calling Republicans Nazis, Islamophobes, homophobes, misogynists, fascists, you name it. That is going to reach the ears and into the psyche of people who are disturbed, mentally ill, prone to violence anyway, and eventually people are going to get killed. And that is a left-wing phenomenon in America right now, and it's incredibly dangerous.
Last month, Mark traveled to the state of Montana, joining Patriot Academy President Rick Green for their Restoring America full tank tour.
It's not up to Congress to fix it. It's not up to Donald Trump to fix it. It's not going to get fixed because we all complain a whole bunch about it and point our fingers at those bad people in Washington, D.C. We have to fix it. That's the amazing thing about this system of governance. It was set up to give us the tools so that we can fix it.
The Brothers from Another Mother appeared in 3 different cities for town halls, building awareness of Article 5, and the Convention of States movement. Tennessee is officially 34 ready. Governor Bill Lee signed a bill that ensures the volunteer state has rules in place for selecting and governing commissioners to the very first Article 5 convention. And a huge congratulations to the COS Tennessee team for muscling this legislation through the legislature and securing victory. The bill received supermajorities in both chambers, 25-5 win in the Tennessee Senate and a 74-16 vote of the House. Elsewhere, the Missouri House General Law Committee unanimously advanced 34 ready by a vote of 12-0. And Oklahoma advanced 34 ready to their Senate for final passage. And here's some more good news from the field. The COS Maryland team secured a huge legislative victory of their own. HB 0057 and SB 0204 established a civic excellence program that gives Maryland students the opportunity to actively engage in civic life. Moving over to the Emerging Leaders program, 6 interns with Convention of States traveled to Washington, D.C. for a tour of the Capitol, meeting with high-profile supporters of COS, culminating in a graduation ceremony at the site of the George Mason Memorial. As a graduate myself, I want to give a huge kudos to these 6 bright interns. I know that they are going to go on to do amazing things, whether it's in politics or in business or who knows what they end up doing, but I know because they went through this internship program, they are going to have a huge impact outside of the Convention of States, and I can't wait to see it. That's all for this week. Tell me your favorite piece of news in the comments below, and I'll see you next time for another edition of COS Now.
Just some great things that are going on across the nation. And I thank you so much, Andrew, for bringing all of that to us tonight. But I do have some breaking news on a couple of fronts. First, I want to again echo what Andrew said and say congratulations to our Tennessee team for getting that done with the 34 ready legislation. I don't think people understand this, so I hope you appreciate the Tennessee team has been at this for close to a decade. I mean, it's been 10 years since we passed the resolution there. Shortly after we passed the resolution, they have been working on legislation to do exactly what Andrew said. How do we select commissioners? How do they react? How do they conduct themselves at a convention? What would be the parameters on that? They've been working so incredibly hard, and to see them finally get over the hump by working with the legislators and then getting Governor Lee to sign the bill is incredible. So a huge, huge congratulations to them. Also, today we had a huge victory in Missouri. So Andrew had mentioned that it had passed through committee there. Well, today it passed the Senate and it now moves to the governor's desk. So Governor Mike Kehoe there in Missouri is just we're hoping going to sign the bill any minute. But the Missouri team also has been working extremely hard, and it's because of the relationships that they have built there in that legislature that they were able to get this legislation across the finish line. You know, sometimes the legislature, believe it or not, they have a lot of things that they discuss and debate every year, and there are so many bills that are really a priority to them. Sometimes legislation like this for a convention that is not happening right away, they say, yeah, you know what, I think that's important, but maybe not this year, or maybe not right now. And yet our teams continue to work and build those relationships. So big congratulations to Brett Sturley and our Missouri team for working so hard on that. I also know that our South Carolina team has advanced our resolution. I believe it's gotten through the House there, 34 ready legislation. It just has to now get through the Senate. So way to go, South Carolina. I know that y'all are doing a great job there. Also, I want to make an announcement to any of our viewers that are from Oklahoma. So Oklahoma, as Andrew mentioned, has passed this legislation through the House. Now it's there and it's sitting in the Senate, and action needs to be taken by tomorrow. Tomorrow could be the last day that they consider legislation, and we need a resolution passed there. Now, I will say Oklahoma already has passed 34 ready legislation. This is legislation that will strengthen the criminal penalties and really make Oklahoma the first Article 5 sanctuary state, which gives them an opportunity to potentially be the home state to host the convention. Really, really exciting stuff there. So if you're in Oklahoma, contact your senators, tell them to advance this legislation tomorrow. That is our chance. So please take the time to contact your senator. And again, all of these states, the incredible work that they've done. We have 15 states that we know have already passed some type of Article 5 convention-related legislation. These states, Tennessee, Missouri, are moving towards that. Indiana, as you all know, passed our Model 34 ready legislation, the first state to do that last year. It's been really, really exciting. And these are the kinds of things that people don't always take notice, right? They look at the scoreboard and they say, well, how many states have called have called for the convention and passed your resolution? All right, well, we've got 20 states, but that's not where it stops. There's much more that happens, and our teams have been working extremely hard on this. I also have to give a tip of the cap to our Louisiana team. They are advancing F3 legislation there. I think one bill in particular, the Louisiana I'm going to forget exactly what legislation it is that we're moving through. They've got so many bills there in Louisiana that I'm struggling to remember which one is on the verge of passing, others that are moving forward there. So I shouldn't have even gone down that road. Sorry, Louisiana, but I know that y'all are working really hard and I appreciate it. I do know one bill that we're also supporting there is their governor has called to redistrict their congressional districts. And there's a bill there that we're also supporting as well. And hopefully the legislature will take action on that soon. If you're in Louisiana, make sure you're connecting with our Louisiana team. Look at your emails. There are a lot of messages that have been going out asking for you to take action. So be on the lookout for that. I think there are going to be some messages in particular over the next day or two that are going to be coming out. So keep working hard to our Louisiana team. All right, folks. So that concludes COS Now. Now we're going to be going into our interview with Steve Deace. We did have to pre-record this interview. We recorded it on Monday because Steve is a very busy guy. As I mentioned, all of those different things that he has done in his career, and this year in particular, he has been traveling across the country, talking in a number of different audiences about quite a few things. And so we had to accommodate his schedule and pre-record this interview, but I think you will really, really enjoy it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and turn to that interview. And now we have the great pleasure of welcoming back to the program film producer, #1 best-selling author, and host of the Steve Deace Show on Blaze TV, Steve Deace. Steve, how are you, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing great. It is so wonderful to have you back on the program. I checked my notes, and we last had you on the program last February, which feels honestly like 10 years ago. So given that we have not had you on since the assassination of Charlie Kirk in September, I just wanted to extend my deepest condolences to you. I think I may have texted you around that time, but I just felt like doing it here on the program was important. You know, Charlie's martyrdom has had a profound impact on me and my family, and we never knew him. You did, and it's impossible for us to even be able to comprehend the pain you and so many others have gone through since that assassination in September. I actually think it's an appropriate place, though, to start this conversation because just a little over a week ago, President Trump was the target of yet another assassination attempt. When you add in the online hysterics over the Iran war, the rise of anti-Semitism, the ghoulish and sinister attacks on Erica Kirk, if it wasn't clear to those with eyes to see and ears to hear back in September, it's now an inescapable fact that our political battles are deeply intertwined with spiritual warfare. Beyond the struggle for power in our nation, there's a war waging for the soul of America. How do we, as patriotic, liberty-loving Americans, stay grounded and remain focused on moving the ball forward?
Well, I think that is going to go a long way, your question, in determining the ultimate fate of our nation, because we're heading into an era, and I said this immediately after Charlie was murdered, that I truly don't think, and there's just no way people could have known en masse how much of what we are seeing transpire right now on the right, Charlie was holding back. And I think with him not there, and now you're seeing how a lot of it has come to the forefront. I mean, I'll just give one very specific example. I don't think there's any shot in literal hell Tucker Carlson is doing right now what he is doing if Charlie Kirk is alive. I don't think that at all. And I think that's just one example of one of the closest displays of apostolic giftedness I've ever witnessed, is the comprehensive giftedness and discernment that Charlie brought to the table. And it's not like we have produced an assembly line of such figures in the last era of the church. And I don't think it's coincidental, to answer your question, that coinciding together, we saw the zeitgeist succumb to postmodernism and moral subjectivism. At the same time, the church just stopped taking discipleship seriously on a collective basis. Too many pastors interested in building a brand rather than a kingdom. And you put those two things together and you end up in the era that we're in now. And I would describe this era as epistemological systemic retardation. That we've been lied to so many times that we struggle with where to go for truth. I don't think either side of the political aisle will be immune to this. I think on the left, because they view the institutions that display much of the mainstream information in our country as theirs. And I think you saw this starting with COVID. They are going to do whatever those institutions say. They're not going to critically think it. They're not going to skeptically look at it. I'm old enough to remember when the anti-vax issue was pretty much exclusively a left-wing loony issue. And now you'll struggle to find Democrats that would just not volunteer all the children they abort to be lab rats for Pfizer, in a great service to the cause, whatever cause that is. And so I think that whatever comes out of their institutions, they will, like lemmings do, they will, quote, just follow orders. And then they will look to impose that on everyone else by any means necessary, which is why they keep shooting at Donald Trump and shot Charlie. On the right, though, I think you're watching a significant swath of the right in response to what I just said. They're kind of becoming reactionaries. Now, not all reactionaryism is bad. I mean, someone breaks into your home and threatens you and your family, react, okay? But reactionaryism cannot be it can't be a state of being. And the world is way more complicated than, well, the authorities lied to me, so therefore I know his fingerprints are on the murder weapon. I know his family turned him in. I know he confessed, and not a single member of his family has come forward to provide any exculpatory evidence whatsoever. But I'm pretty convinced Erica Kirk murdered Charlie and or had Charlie murdered, and it wasn't Tyler Robinson, because I just don't want to believe anything that comes from an official source. And I think that's going to be the right wing's version of what the left said when you were a kid. I don't believe in absolute truth. You're like, well, is that an absolute? Or all truth is relative. I'm like, well, if that's true, that's already an absolute. Just that kind of self-refuting contradiction. That's what reactionaryism as a state of being will do to you. And I think much of the right is going to increasingly seek out more aggressively Gnostic grifters for more aggressively sinister and suspicious motives. And hey, sometimes the motives that are sinister and suspicious are true. But just assuming that is no different than just skeptically believing everything that they tell you either. And so real discernment there is, without a biblical worldview, you're going to just see that no one will be able to display that on a consistent basis. And we're going to find out what a narrow road really looks like, I think, in this era we're in right now.
So you're just talking about discerning truth, and I think with all of the influencers that are lining up to promulgate misinformation online and on their platforms and everything, it's becoming harder and harder for people to discern truth. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice on the best way to filter out the noise?
Well, ironically, I think one of the best advices is to quote my buddy Candace Owens, to just ask some questions. But here's some questions I would ask. I mean, why have you called the Utah Valley Police and presented your evidence? Have you contacted Tyler Robinson? One of his attorneys represented the two brothers in the 80s that murdered their parents. Have you, whose name escapes me, but have you contacted the attorney? Have you offered to testify? I'm remembering during the Brett Kavanaugh affair, I just started yelling at people. If you really believe and have evidence that Brett Kavanaugh was a marauding rapist in the early 80s in Georgetown, get off Twitter, call the police. What are you doing on Twitter? Call the cops. I had a guy send me a long rambling note the other day about how it's not possible for ballistics. He's a physics math know-it-all. And there's just no way a bullet operates out of a 30-06 the way that Tyler Robinson's is alleged to have worked to murder Charlie. I'm like, why are you emailing me? I'm not the police. I'm not his defense attorney. I mean, call them. And I think one of the things to get, faith without works is dead for all religions, not just ours. And so I would take all these new age Gnostics on the right that have all the secret knowledge you're looking for and the ability to connect the dots no one else can, and just ask them. I put my work during COVID to the test because it wasn't my work. I was not uncovering anything in COVID, Jonathan. I was using their data. It was their data. I was citing, if you go back and look at Fauci and Bargain, our #1 bestseller, there's more footnotes than pages. I wasn't conjecturing on anything. There was no speculation at all. I was using CDC data. I was using health department data from nations around the earth. I did this really complicated thing where, hey, I noticed Denmark was the first nation to provide stratified information on COVID-19's mortality rate and infection rate. So I got an idea. Why don't I just run their stuff through the Google Translate on, online so I can read it in English? That's what I did, man. I can't do a seroprevalence study. I'm assuming Candace Owens can't do a forensics, study of Tyler Robinson's nitrates or his fingerprints or DNA. So, I was using the information from his official sources. The information was there all along. They just lied to you and didn't want you to know about it. Yeah, and in the case of the rest of these people, I think they have some kind of secret knowledge. Ask them to put it to the test. Hey, man, get off your podcast. End it early today, old CO. And call the CO with the Utah Valley Police Department over there. Call them up and present your stuff. I'm sure they'd be very interested. Or call the Robinson family or call his attorneys. Get on a plane. We see you fly on these vacations all over the world. Fly out there to the Utah area there, and show them what you got. I think it's time to just sit there and say to people, if you have the goods, act on it. And I think some of this is just going to have to be that simple. I don't even know how much video you'll be able to trust in the future with AI and everything else. So if this is real, act on it, right? People, they say to us all the time, every single time that we don't live up to their perception, which is often wrong, of what Christ likeness is, they'll say, well, I don't believe that Jesus would do that. Well, my first answer to always, if you have such a high regard for Jesus, why aren't you a Christian? Number one. But then number two, okay, well then hold them to that same standard. All right, great. You don't think he's guilty. You think you've got all kinds of exculpatory evidence, you think that TPUSA's found, essentially murdered their own founder or looked the other way or were happy about it, not to mention his widow. Call the cops. And that's who you're going to find out who just wants the tea, wants the gossip, just wants their total depravity dopamine hit, and who really is a seeker of truth, who will act on it. That works both ways.
Amen. And so it sounds like basically put up or shut up is what a lot of these people really need to do.
Yep.
So when
if I don't see Candace Owens on the witness stand for Tyler Robinson's defense, then what did we do for the last year and a half? What was that then?
Exactly. So when you joined us last February, President Trump had just been sworn back into office. His cabinet was beginning to take shape, and we saw a flurry of executive orders to advance some of his policies and undo many horrific executive orders from the previous administration. You made the point that 2025 was going to be one of the most consequential years in American history, and that Congress had to act to codify President Trump's policy agenda. Outside of the big, beautiful bill, and maybe there was a bill or two other than that mostly did not happen. And the latest disappointment from Congress has been the Save America Act. In a sane world, this legislation, which simply requires that a voter prove he or she is an American citizen before voting in federal elections, should pass 535 to 0. Furthermore, polling has shown that Americans of all political persuasions support this legislation. So, Steve, what does the resistance to this bill tell us about the deep challenges we face in restoring the trust and integrity to our political system?
Well, it's one of those pieces of legislation that if you could pass it easily, you probably wouldn't need it, right? You'd have an intact social compact. You'd have a rule of law. You'd have rules of engagement for both sides. We don't have any of that. We don't. America is a divorced couple still living together for the kids because they can't figure out how to split the money and who gets the kids. That's not a marriage, and this isn't a country. And so that's where we are. And so it's precisely because we do need it that we're having a hard time passing it. And what it tells you on one end is that essentially they're just open, avowed, spirit of the age Marxists there. Whatever gets them more power and control by hook or by crook, no matter what has to be broken in that process, they are for it. And then what it tells you is on our end, there's still just too many people who either are somewhere between incompetent to the point of being a coward. And of course, our Lord throws the cowardly into the lake of fire first when he comes back, or they're just flat out quislings. They're just flat out traitors. And I don't think that's nearly as many Republicans, maybe even sometimes I've myself led my audience to believe. The problem is it's still way too many. And when you're dealing with the margins that we're probably going to have to hold and win by for the foreseeable future, given how balkanized the country is, there's just too many places Democrats can't win no matter what they do, and Republicans can't either, no matter what they do. And so you're just not going to see 9-seat Senate majorities, 40-seat House majorities, like you'd see sometimes when I was a kid. That's just not going to happen for the foreseeable future. And so it doesn't really take too many quislings to just sabotage the whole thing for everybody else. And so that's why I don't spend a lot of time arguing, is it a quisling or is it a coward? Because the end result is still the same. And that's unfortunately where we are stymied right now. And I do think there's a handful of Republicans. What's a handful? In the Senate, I'd say 20 or less. But that's still too many when you're dealing with a 2 or 3 seat majority or whatever it is there in the Senate. There's 20 or less that would much rather have Charles Schumer in control of the Senate than somebody that we would like. And so it's not as many as we think, but it's still way too many to sustain.
Crystal ball, do you think it gets done before the midterms?
I still think they're going to find a way to get it done, if for no other reason than if they don't, they essentially are telling our base, just don't even show up. And I know Donald Trump, man, is the greatest salesman maybe in American history, certainly since, P.T. Barnum. Going to be real hard to go around the country and say, hey, I really need you to vote for this member of Congress who didn't do jack squat for us in the last year and a half, Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, I'm going to get impeached. Well, that's where you're going to lose and get impeached because they didn't do jack squat for the last year and a half, right? It becomes a circular argument. I mean, you can be a salesman. He's not leading Hail Bob. Okay. I mean, he can't sell you something against your own will that you want. Right. And so, I think here is a doomsday scenario that I'm not sure the Republican Party will recover from in my lifetime. And what I'm about to lay out it's certainly not it's a non-zero chance. And that is that they don't go back to the original filibuster. So they don't ever get the Save America Act on the president's desk. Democrats win big this fall, including the Senate, and then they get rid of the filibuster. If that happens, and then use it to try to stack the court. If that happens, I'm not sure the Republican Party on a national level will recover from that.
So speaking of trust and integrity, last week, Dr. David Morenz, a longtime senior advisor to Dr. Anthony Fauci at NIAID, was indicted on charges including conspiracy, destruction and concealment of federal records, and evading FOIA requests related to the COVID-19 origins and research grants. If trust is ever to be restored in our institutions, won't we first need to see real accountability for anyone involved in activities like which Dr. Morenz is alleged to have participated, or even we saw that former FBI Director Comey was also indicted about the 8647 image that he had taken and posted to his Instagram. Don't we need to see these people held accountable for these things?
10,000%. And you're always going to get more. Anybody who's been a parent for more than 10 minutes can tell you, you'll get whatever behavior but whatever bad behavior you don't punish and whatever good behavior you incentivize, you'll get more of it. And that applies here, 100%.
So to me, all of this dysfunction and lack of trust further underscores why we need to have an Article 5 convention. As you know, Kansas became the 20th state to pass the resolution in January. In addition, states like Tennessee, Missouri, and Oklahoma, where we have already passed the COS resolution, are taking further action to prepare for a potential convention. Still, legislatures in states like South Dakota, Iowa, Montana, Wyoming, North Carolina, and others have not moved our resolution forward. You have always emphasized the importance of leadership on your show, and I firmly believe that the path to victory in these intransigent states must start with we the people. What practical advice do you have for the leaders of these state teams as they work to inspire more people to join our efforts?
Well, again, I mean, I would go back and cite my good friend Candace here and just ask some questions. What's your plan then? What's your plan then? Listen, if let's say that tomorrow John Thune announced, all right, we're gonna amend the filibuster and go back to what it was until just a few years ago, and make Democrats stand up there and talk the entire time. And of course, they'll be unable to. They're not gonna completely stymie the Senate between now and the first Tuesday in November, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, reminding everybody they want non-citizens to vote in our elections. They're not going to do that. So let's say that happens. All right, and is there a chance that Democrats won't follow through? They have threatened for many years to get rid of the filibuster and have never done it before. Is there a chance that they won't follow through, and therefore you may undo the filibuster on your own unnecessarily and step on a rake? Sure. I mean, we're not God. We can't know the certainty. We can't know the future with certainty. So of course there's a chance that may happen. But everything is a calculation because we don't know the future. So we're making calculated guesses here and predictions. And maybe it's just me, but I'm not sure I want to put the entire rest of what's left of our constitutional republic and bet it all on Democrats showing uncharacteristic restraint. I mean, they might do it. They might. I mean, I don't know. It could be just blustering. Politicians do that, bloviate on both sides of the aisle. But given the extents we've seen them go to, they're fine shooting our people, they're fine imprisoning our people, trying to bankrupt our people, ban our people. I mean, I don't know. Kind of seems like, let me go ahead and put my last bet on. I'm going to go all in on the next time they have the power to do so, they're going to practice restraint. I don't have enough faith to bet on that. I mean, I'd much rather bet on myself. And that's why if I were one of your field directors, I'd be asking that question. Okay, cool. What's your plan? What's your plan then? Right? We just had a Congress not codify many of our president's executive orders. We might lose 40 House seats next year. Might lose the governorship here in my home state of Iowa the way that it's looking. So I mean, what's your plan then? We just sit here and let stuff happen to us? What kind of plan is that? What is your plan? And people may not like your plan here at COS, but it's a plan. And as the great D.L. Moody once famously said, I like my plan for doing something better than your plan for not doing anything. All right. So what's your plan then? What is the opposite plan? What is it? Okay. What's the alternative plan? And there's no reason that anybody, it's in a conversation, skepticism and scrutinization doesn't just have to happen in one direction. It can happen on both sides, right? Trials, we still get to have both sides get to question the witness. So, hey, you guys want to question the plan here with an Article 5 convention? Cool. Well, what's yours then? What do we do? Just sit here and lose? I mean, what's your alternative plan? Then I want to hear it, and I'm waiting. Go. Make them articulate their plan.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Honestly, a lot of the people that oppose us, organizations that oppose us, they practice those same ridiculous tactics that we're seeing with the questions that are coming up on Charlie Kirk and did Erica, was she a part of the assassination and everything, by just throwing things out there without actually providing any type of evidence. Or to your point, they'll fearmonger and try to poke holes into what we're trying to do without presenting what the alternative looks like. What is it that we can affirmatively do and accomplish that isn't an Article 5 convention, but fixes the problem? And heretofore, I have not seen anything presented. And I think it's a great point that you make, that we need to highlight that more and really start asking questions.
I mean, you're going to claim to care more about the Constitution than the guys who wrote it and ratified it. They put it in there. Well, what's it in there for then? I mean, you care more about it than they do. That's like Candace Owens claims to care more about Tyler Robinson than his lawyers and his entire family does. Cool. Then move to Utah then. Go there for the trial, I mean, you guys claim to care more about the Constitution than the people that wrote it. They put this provision in there. All right. So then what's your alternative plan then? We just keep voting for the same Republicans over and over again. They keep screwing us over and over again. I mean, that's your plan? What's your plan? Time for people. I mean, it's just time to put people on the record on lots of things.
Amen. So one last question I have for you, Steve. I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but our organization's aspirational goal is to inspire both a political and spiritual awakening. You have said for years that for America to survive, it is revival or bust. This July, we celebrate America's 250th birthday, and our Declaration of Independence clearly states, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The latest book in your trilogy of children's books, Why Independence Day, America is Great Because God is Good, will be released on May 26th. And I can say for us in the Viaud household, we have the first 2 books in that trilogy, and they are phenomenal books. So you definitely want to check that out, folks. But
thank you,
Steve, for believers and non-believers alike, explain for us why a revival is needed for liberty and freedom, the type of liberty and freedom embodied in the spirit of 1776 to revitalize and sustain our nation for, Lord willing, for 250 years, another 250 years and beyond.
Great question to close on, brother. Let's go to the creed that launched this entire thing 250 years ago. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. All right, so these are truths that are so obvious. In the original draft, Jefferson used the term sacred, but he wanted something that was even more simple and direct and obvious than that. So self-evident. We all kind of know these things instinctively. It's wired into us. By who? Well, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by certain unalienable or unchangeable, unfixable, automatic rights by our Creator. So these are imbued in us. And if we're created and there's a Creator, that means there's a being that we're ultimately accountable to. And so that creed, and that the idea that governments exist to not create rights or take them away, but secure them. Rights that are pre-existing according to the laws of nature and nature's God, as Thomas Jefferson said. That truth right there is what set this nation apart from all others at the moment of their founding. And it's why we are the longest ongoing concurrent experiment in self-governing human freedom in the entire history of our species. And that's just 250 years. It's that truth right there. And you're not going to secure a way of life on God-given rights by being a godless people. Because we were all made to worship. Someone will always rule. Something will always be worshipped. And so if the Creator is not God, then the state becomes God, or I'm my own God. Maybe now we're increasingly seeing Allah is God. And so something's going to fill that space. And if the wrong thing fills that space, then you can't have a culture on God-given rights. Islam is not capable of producing a culture on God-given rights, for it doesn't believe people are made in the likeness and image of God. So right away, we've got, Houston, we have a problem with that. We can't let people declare themselves to be God. We're capricious, we're immoral, we're sinful. And so we'll use that freedom to indulge our sinful natures and then punish those who won't give us the affirmation we want. It's a good thing we don't have any reminders of that in our culture at all, except every June every year. And so something has to be in that space. And we put the right thing in that space. And we were the first civilization since ancient Israel to put that right thing in that space. And it created the last best hope for humanity east of Eden until Jesus returns. And without putting the right thing back in that space, there's no hope for the future. It's just as simple as that.
Steve, we are absolutely blessed to call you a friend and have your support with our organization. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us again for COS at Home. Folks, be sure to check out Why Independence Day and the other Why books in the children's series. We really appreciate you, Steve. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you guys. Appreciate what you do as well. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Take care. Would be nice if I actually unmuted the microphone, right, folks? Ah, wow. All right. Rookie mistake. My apologies. Wonderful to have Steve Deace's support. We really appreciate him. He always brings the heat. And thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. Now it's time for Action at Home. All right. So I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but veterans are a big part of what we do with Convention of States. We are extremely grateful to all of our country's veterans and deeply appreciate the sacrifices they and their families have made for our nation. Many veterans who believe that their oath never expires have also committed to volunteering with Convention of States to do their part in helping to reestablish a culture of self-governance. Brett Kulbus, a veteran from the great state of Hawaii, is the current National Veterans Coalition Director, advising some of our veterans on how to serve their state teams. Brett also tracks how many petitions have been signed by veterans, and as of the end of April, Brett shared with us that we have 336,946 signed petitions that have come from our veterans. Those are amazing numbers, and we want to up the ante. At the start of May, we set a goal to hit 350,000 signed petitions, and you can help us make that happen. You can do so by sharing the COS message with veterans. You can go to VFW halls, American Legion halls, or even just talking to ones that you may know within your family or your friends. Educate them about Convention of States and encourage them to sign the petition. They can do so by going to conventionofstates.com/petition. And again, I just want to take a minute to thank all of our veterans for your service to our freedom and to our nation. We are so grateful for all of the sacrifices you've made, and of course to the families as well. They sacrifice so much when our service members are away from them, and so we don't want to forget them either. So thank you so much, and help us to get to 350,000 signed petitions from veterans. Okay, let's check the Minutemen mailbag. All right. The Minutemen mailbag question we asked you this month, as I mentioned, was a timely one, and it's something that's impacting many of us, millions of us across the country. With security lines now stretching outside terminal doors and ICE agents stepping in to help, is it time to officially privatize airport security? What should be done about long lines at the airport and TSA? Now, we only got 2 responses. And I'm kind of surprised by that because, like I said, this is something that really impacts a lot of people. But I want to give a shout out to the 2 that did respond to us, and we'll read their answers here in a minute. But for everyone else, you failed the assignment. All right, but we'll address that here in a minute. So the responses that we got, Sheila Marie Malloy wrote in, and she said, maybe we should petition them to officially privatize airport lines at the airport and TSA. I agree. Sheila, it may be the time to review that. And then Vivian Snyder wrote in and she said, I hesitate to think what corruption could happen if privatized, and would it bring more handouts going to the elected officials that would hire the company? I can certainly understand the concern there, Vivian, but obviously something has to be done. So as I mentioned, all of you failed the assignment because you did not give us additional answers to this mailbag question. No, Vivian and Sheila, we really appreciate you. We do have a poll that we have prepared for everyone, asking you directly for you to answer here tonight. Should should airport security be privatized? So you can answer our poll by pressing 1 or typing in yes, pressing 2 or typing in no, and go. We'd love to see your answers to that poll right now. But in addition to getting some feedback from all of you while we're on the show here tonight, I thought, why not ask Grok? That's the AI with X.com, formerly Twitter, and see what Grok had to say about privatizing TSA. And so Grok shared with me some interesting information. I'm going to read a little bit with you right now. But Grok said a potential solution is to scale up the screening partnership program. I didn't even know this existed. So TSA already allows airports to opt into the screening partnership program, where private contractors perform screening under strict TSA standards, oversight, training requirements, and performance audits. TSA sets all security protocols, policies, and procedures. Private firms just execute them more flexibly. And why should it be expanded nationwide or perhaps more aggressively? Grok lists the reasons. It's shutdown-proof resilience. So during the 2026 crisis, SPP airports with private contractors operated normally because their contracts were pre-funded and staff weren't federal employees subject to pay lapses. No massive lines or ICE intervention needed there, unlike direct TCA airports. Efficiency and productivity gains. Older GAO and congressional analysis showed private screeners processing up to 65% more passengers per screener in some cases, with comparable or better detection rates in tests and often shorter lines. No consistent security downgrade. Performance was similar or better on key metrics like recertification, staffing, and cost flexibility. Private operators can hire and fill positions faster, often better incentives for retention, customer service, and they adjust to demand, seasonal part-time. And of course, would be TSA as a regulator, not as an operator. This mirrors successful models in Canada and much of Europe. TSA focuses on standards, intelligence, and audits, reducing its roughly 50,000 officer federal workforce bloat while maintaining or improving security accountability. The Trump fiscal year 2027 budget already proposed expanding SPP for approximately $52 million in savings. And so it goes on to say that it is a complementary fix and not an instead of. Or this would be some things that they would include with that. So not just doing that, but some other things that could be paired with it. It says privatization alone isn't magic, but pair it with technology, deploy more CT scanners, biometric facial recognition lanes, and AI-assisted screening to cut manual checks. TSA is already testing some of this. Risk-based screening expands TSA pre-check, clear, and entrusted traveler programs dramatically. 99% of pre-check passengers clear in less than 10 minutes. And it makes some other suggestions. But the bottom line from Grok was the 2026 crisis showed the federal monopoly model cracks under pressure. Expanding SPP offers a tested, resilient path to shorter lines, better service, and maintained security without relying on band-aids like ICE deployments. Airports could apply transition voluntarily, with TSA approving based on cost and performance. It's not ideological, it's evidence-driven pragmatism. Travelers, airlines, and taxpayers would benefit most. So I thought this was really interesting. I had no idea that this program even existed. It seems like the Trump administration is expanding on it, and there are airports that have already been opting into this, and those airports continue to operate regularly. So there weren't issues with how things occurred there at those airports because they weren't solely reliant on the TSA. And just taking a look at our poll results so far, so it looks like 71% of people believe that, yes, airport security should be privatized, 29% say no. So yeah, that's a lot of great comments there, everybody, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to do that. Now, I did want to announce that we're going to have a new question for next month, and we always do, but we have it ready, and I want to share it with you ahead of time and get this tail out of my face. So the question for next month is, if you could ask every politician and pundit to answer one question about this attempt on President Trump's life, what would it be? So if you want to answer that, you can go to conventionofstates.com/mailbag and submit your answers, and we will read those live on the next program next month. So thank you again, Sheila and Vivian, for answering this month's question, and thank you, Grok, for also providing us with some information there. So just a reminder, folks, all of the COS at Home shows are aired live on the first Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The next show will be on Wednesday, June 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern. And my guest will be another returning guest, the former Texas State Representative, founder and president of Patriot Academy, America's Constitution coach, Rick Green. I'm really looking forward to having Rick back on the program, especially as we will be 1 month away from celebrating America's 250. I know America's Constitution coach is going to have a lot to share about that and so much more. So I hope that you will all join us on Wednesday, June 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I may even ask him about that full tank tour that he did with Mark in Montana. So be sure to join us for that. I'm sure there will be some fun stuff that he can share from that. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we sign off, there is an important holiday in the month of May, and that is, of course, Memorial Day. Sadly, over the years, Memorial Day has become primarily associated with the beach, barbecues, and the unofficial start to summer. However, the purpose of Memorial Day, as many of you already know, is to take time to honor the service members that made the ultimate sacrifice for freedom and liberty. We cannot survive as a nation if we do not remember, honor, and learn from our past. This Memorial Day, please take the time to honor the soldiers we have lost and take the time to educate young people and family members about these American heroes. Our family will be joining our local American Heritage Girls organization, and we'll be planting flags at a national cemetery here in our area. I strongly encourage you to be intentional about honoring this important American holiday. I should also mention that tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer, so please to also take the time tomorrow to pray for our nation. We certainly need it, particularly in these times, but if nothing else, turning to God will always lead us in the right direction. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, I want to thank you for joining us and for tuning into our program. I hope you've enjoyed the show and found it helpful and edifying. Thanks again to our brother, Steve Deace, for joining us tonight. A big thanks to the legend, Producer G, for all his hard work behind the scenes. And there you go. There's the real star of COS at Home, and that is O'Malley. He's always there. Yeah, you want to take a bow? Anything you want to say? You want to add anything for the folks here tonight? I guess not. So yeah, Producer G, appreciate all the hard work that you do and the fun that you put together for these memes. Totally caught me off guard. Sorry, folks. But the greatest thanks, of course, goes to all of you and for your continued support of Convention of States. We really appreciate all of you being in the Article 5 movement. It's important to remember, though, folks, that despite all the problems we currently face in our country, you and I, we the people, are the solution. So thank you again for all that you do for us. God bless you. God bless our great country, the United States of America, and have a good night.